Hello. Hello, everyone. So good to see you. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is anybody there? I don't know what's going on in the chat. Let me know if you can see me. This is my first YouTube live ever. Am I here? Hi. So, first thing, obviously, that's different is I dyed my hair blonde. What do you think? Do you like it? Can you hear me? Okay, amazing. Thank you. Well, hello. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for watching my Euphoria Reacts videos, my educational videos. Yes, new hair. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe mixture of Cassie Maddie. Where are we at with it? Hi, let me know where you guys are from. I can see Brazil. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's talk about it. I am currently working on the character breakdowns of everyone that we have talked about as a community from Euphoria season 2. But let me know what your questions are. Let's talk about it. I see you guys are from Ireland, Canada, New Jersey, Ecuador, California, Alaska, Denver, Michigan, Queens, Mexico. Thank you so much for being here. The Czech Republic, thank you for coming from all around the world. It means a lot to me that my content serves all of you from all over. My intention of being on here and helping you all learn is when I was growing up, I was really struggling and I didn't have somebody that could explain to me what happens in the mind and body in a way that I could understand it, in a way that made sense to me and my life and what I was experiencing and the words that I used and the ways that I looked. And I just wanted to be relatable, somebody that I needed. So here I am. Let's talk about season 2 of Euphoria. What questions do you have that I haven't answered in the comments? I have a list of questions that me and my creative director put together, but I want to see if you all have questions first. And so I'll give you like a minute. And then if there aren't any, I see there already is one, then we'll get to the questions that I have down here. So let's start with our first question. What do you think was the functioning of Jules cheating on Rue after she said she was no longer interested in men? That confused me. That's a good question. The way that I see it is, of course, Jules is going to have, she's trying to figure out, right? Like, not necessarily what her sexuality is, but who she wants to be with, the type of individual that she wants to be with. I don't think she was necessarily choosing to go back to men. I think she was just looking for comfort in the closest place that she could find comfort. Because here's the thing, that's what our brain does. Our brain considers a few different things before it makes its decisions. The first one is, have I done this thing before? And should I do this thing instead because I know how to do it? Or should I try something new? So, how often have I done it? Repetition. The second thing is accessibility and accommodation. So, whoever's closest to you and whoever can fulfill your needs. So, I really think it was just that she was starting to form a slight bond with Elliot and just went to fulfilling her needs with him versus like moving from dating Rue to dating a man, if that makes sense. Another question. Do you think Cassie shows symptoms of borderline personality disorder? This is a really big question and a very important question for me to particularly answer. I have borderline personality disorder. I've struggled with borderline personality disorder since I was 13 years old. So I know the signs very well. I know the symptoms very well. And I know the potential to overcome all of the signs and symptoms as well. For Cassie, we see her experiencing hypersexuality, unstable relationships, potentially engaging in some self-harm, substance use, and so on. The thing to differentiate is that it doesn't seem like, other than romantic relationships, that she has the other signs of borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder, while the top symptom has to do with relationships and impulsivity. It's not the only symptom. And usually, impulsivity is applied in many other sectors of the person's life as well. So, we don't know for sure yet. Maybe this is written in the storyline for Cassie. We don't really know. But all that I've seen so far is unstable relationships and then a potential to self harm because of those unstable relationships. But we haven't seen too much of that outside of relationships. So that's really important. She could have attachment issues, anxious or avoidant attachment issues, and be in the middle, currently struggling because the biggest issue is between her and her best friend right now. So I think time will tell. However, is she showing signs that she could develop borderline personality disorder or that she may have it, but all the signs aren't there yet? Yes, she does. You're welcome. Hi, Venezuela. Do I think Cassie has histrionic personality disorder? No. If anything, she's closest to borderline. But again, we want to see more signs. We want to see it last for a longer period of time. She clearly has attachment issues from not having her parent, not having her father. But we don't know if it's going to manifest into more than that because these are very situational experiences. And she isn't, in general, an impulsive person. And that matters. Okay, let's see. They're coming in so fast. Okay. Loving the blonde. Thank you. Why do you think Ash did what he did? That's a really good question. Okay. I haven't fully done his character analysis yet, so let me think. Well, his family is all that he knows, and he's a huge protector. I actually want to, let me see if I can pull something up really quick. I don't know. Do people do this on lives? Do they go into a different screen and look something up? Hopefully they do. Let me see. I have something because I went and rewatched all of season 1. Okay. So all I see so far is that he said that in the very first episode that he wanted to sell drugs to make money and pay off their mortgage and that he doesn't fuck with human trafficking. Those are 2 things that he said in season 1. And what that tells me is that he cares a lot about his family and he does have respect for other people. So that's kind of confusing, right? Because he just goes around killing people. So that doesn't really make sense. And for me, I think it was because his family was on the line and because he had no idea what was going to happen after that. He would rather go defending than go not defending and then be isolated and have no idea what's to come next. I think he was just being defensive and has absolutely no impulse control. He's also really young. So we can see that Fez is a lot more specific when it comes to when he's violent and when he's not violent. He has discretion. He has the ability to know if what he's doing is going to be a good idea. Even though it's never a good idea, for him, a value line has to be crossed in order for him to go and be physically violent. But for Ashtray, his only value is family. And so in all of these instances where he feels like his environment is threatened, what he's used to is threatened, and his family is threatened, he takes immediate action. Does that make sense? Let me know. Okay. What do I think about Maddie saying the R word all the time? What word is that? Can you tell me? Yeah, exactly. Keisha Anderson got it right. He kills people who threaten the safety of his family. Yes, absolutely. When people talk about Ash, I never see people bring his age into account. Yeah, that's so important. It's so important. I mean, he's conditioned to have certain impulses, but you're impulsive as a child already. And so there's not going to be that ability to pause before you make the decision, especially when it feels like the biggest threat that you could ever have, because all he knows is his family. I wish I could read all of these comments and respond to you all. So hopefully I'm doing an okay job. Does Nate really love anyone or does he just crave control? Good question. Okay. I would say Nate has the potential to love because I think most people have the potential to love. And I think that we see that. Oh, and something to point out. Some people were commenting that I jumped the gun saying that the Jules tape or the Jules video was not on the USB drive that he gave to the police. I saw an interview with the actor. I'm blanking his name because I'm nervous. And he said that he played that scene out as if the video was not on the USB. So what that tells me, and what the actor knew at the time also, is that Nate didn't want to hurt Jules. Nate has the potential to relate to other people, even though it really seems like he doesn't. In that dream that he had, where it was Cal and Jules, and then he took the place of Jules, in my opinion, that means that he understood that the pain that Cal enacted onto Nate, he also enacted onto Jules. So he finds similarity there. He finds that he's not alone and that his father has hurt more people than just him in a very similar way. So he has the potential to care and the potential to love. I don't know if he loved Maddie. I don't know if he loved Cassie, but I know that he did like control. He liked to feel as though he was fulfilling the dreams that he was told to fulfill from when he was a really young age. When Cal in season 1 even is like, you need to be a man, don't be a pussy, always be the best. If you don't get up on top, then somebody's going to be on top instead of you. And when you're on top, people are going to keep trying to tear you down. So I think he has the potential for love, but I think it's really similar to what's going on with Rue. I think Rue has the potential for love, but she's much more interested in ignoring the loss and not feeling the loss of her dad. And I think it may be the same thing with Nate. He has the potential to love, but he's so wrapped up in control, manipulation, and finding ways to ignore who he has become as a result of not having the ability to become whoever he wanted to be, that we haven't really seen that yet. Especially in that conversation that he had with Maddie when she said, "Did you feel loved by me?" And he said, "I don't know." I think that's because he literally couldn't integrate whether or not he was loved, because at a young age, he wasn't even really loved. He doesn't really know what it feels like to be loved by somebody, to be truly accepted by somebody. And if you don't know how to do that, then if you don't know what that feels like, then it's going to be really hard to know how to do it. How can he truly, truly love if he doesn't even know what it means? That's not to say he can't, but in the moment, can he? No, he probably needs to learn more of what that even feels like. Hopefully that makes sense. I truly believe Nate loves Jules, and he might. He just may not romantically. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Is this live going to be Yes. Nate should not be with Jules. I think Nate is in love with Jules, but since his relationship with Cal, sexuality and masculinity is negative, he doesn't want to realize it. Yeah, we'll see. I definitely think that it's going to play out. Obviously, these are characters on TV, so it could go either way. But right now, I just see camaraderie. I see respect for Jules. And people are saying that he probably is in love with Jules because he ended up kissing her. But you have to realize that even in that dream that they showed, he was in the same place as Jules. It's not like he replaced Cal. And it's, you know what I mean? Like he was in the same position as Jules. So I really just see camaraderie and understanding and relation versus love. And even when he kissed her, he immediately put his fingers in her mouth and started doing the exact same thing that his dad did. And so I really think that, in my opinion, I'm just focusing on him having like respect and understanding and not feeling alone in that pain. But we'll see. I think it's too convoluted for me right now, but hopefully it'll become more clear later on. Let's see. Okay, bye to everybody that's leaving. Let's see. What about Jules? She cheated on Rue and wanted to force her to leave her support system. What's the question there? Just reading through these. So many questions. I truly, truly love you a lot. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just reading through these. Thoughts about Jules self-harming. I don't see many people talking about it, and it looks like the show doesn't give that much attention to such a serious issue. Yeah. So, I mean, I think just on the topic of self-harm altogether, like, do you guys have questions about that in general that I can answer? I think for those of you who have never engaged in self-harm, or maybe you have and you aren't quite sure why. Like, what's the mechanism? Like, why do I feel like this is a better choice than to do something different? Like, not do that and seek, or whatever it is. I think we like to have control of our own pain. I think there's a few things. Sometimes when people are self-harming, they like to have control of their own pain. If I'm going to be hurt, I get to decide when and how. I think it could also be that sometimes when people are in so much pain, they feel like they're so disconnected from their own lives or their own personality, their own identity. They just feel so detached and so unwelcome and so numb that engaging in self-harm can give them a feeling. It can make them feel alive. And that's not me encouraging it at all. Please understand that. But that can be some of the reasons why people choose to do that. I also think that sometimes people feel like they deserve to be in pain. If I'm going to be treated like this, if people are going to think about me this way, then there must be something wrong with me. And I might as well be in pain because that's what the world is telling me the state I should be in. So why don't I just jump on board as well? I feel like those are maybe the three main reasons that people do something like that. And it can be really devastating. Okay, let's see. Will you save the live? I will. Thank you for coming. What do I think about Ali being there for Rue? This is a really good question. And it's really interesting because in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, there is a you're always welcome. You can relapse, you're always welcome back. You can act a fool, you're always welcome back. And I think that Ali really just wants to help Rue, but again sets his boundaries because she said shit that was super hurtful. But he understands, not only through his religion, that I'm not sure if he engaged and interacted with the religion once he got clean and sober, if it was part of his journey, or if he was already religious and then gained that even more through the concept of God, of his understanding as he got into recovery as well. But regardless, I think it makes sense that he wants to help. We should always want to help other people and always set our boundaries. And if the boundaries imply that we can't be outwardly helpful, then we can't be outwardly helpful. But hopefully, we can get to a place where the help is received and you're not getting hurt along the way. Thank you to everybody saying that you like my hair. I really appreciate it. I just got it done a couple days ago. Ali is the best, so handsome. I agree. I agree. I feel like we should have gotten more into Gia's struggle. Let's talk about that for a minute. And it's kind of hard for me to talk about, and I want to ask you guys to do something if you can, if you don't mind. My creative director, her name is Sammy. And if you loved the editing for any of these React videos, please let us know in the comments. She puts so much hard work into these videos. And the reason why I'm saying this to answer the Gia question is because when we were growing up, and she's my cousin, when we were growing up, I was first starting to experience my borderline personality disorder. I was drinking, doing drugs, acting literally ridiculous, being violent, angry. Maybe you can't see that now. Maybe you can tell that there was a little bit there in the past. But my cousin, my creative director's sister, also struggled a lot with substance use issues and mental health issues. And as we were watching this season, Rue's behaviors were almost identical to the behaviors of our cousin and my creative director's sister. My creative director was really in Gia's shoes for much of her life. And outside of just my creative director and outside of Gia, so many human beings are the person without a problem, the person without the problem, right? How much of a theme did we see that, or how much of that theme did we see in season 2? We had Cassie, who thought that Cassie was the only one with problems because Lexi didn't experience life. We had Rue thinking that Gia must be totally fine because Gia doesn't have the same issues that Rue has, but the struggle is real. Regardless of whether or not you are the one that is suffering with the mental health issue that's more outward for people to see, doesn't mean that there aren't mental health issues and struggles and difficulties going on within you as a person, as the bystander. Every human being needs love. Every human being needs compassion, understanding, safety, security. And when we have a family member in our house that is experiencing mental health issues, is going to jail, if anybody's violent in the house, whether you watch it or whether it's happening to you, studies show that you can be just as impacted. Just as impacted. And that's really important for everyone to realize. And I think that in season 3, we're going to see Gia's story a lot more. We're going to see Gia struggling because the signs are there. You know, when I was rewatching season 1, Gia, she's trying to relate to Rue. She's trying to experiment. When they're at the carnival and Gia is smoking weed for the second time, and they say something, one of the people say something like, "Oh, well, like she's definitely your sister, like knows how to smoke that weed." And Gia, like she in her facial expression seemed to like that was said. Like, yeah, you know, like that's true, but then also got really upset because they were kind of talking shit on Rue. But it's important, right? She's starting to experiment with substances. Leslie tells us that her grades are doing bad. She's been in detention. She's not really sleeping, and she doesn't feel safe at home. Not only did she watch or experience her dad pass away, just like Rue, but she's also watching Rue almost pass away time and time again. Her nervous system is probably shot to shit. She probably goes to sleep every night, just like Leslie does, wondering if she's going to wake up to Rue ODing again, wondering if she's going to see her sister attacking her mom, wonder if she's going to be attacked. And that's really sad, and that's dangerous, and that can cause anxiety, and it can cause depression, and it can cause identity issues when you've lost a parent and the person that's closest to you is manic, is chaotic, is impulsive, is violent. So it's really important that they emphasize the storyline for Gia in season 3 because you can't ignore that. If the purpose of Sam creating this series was to show the truth about mental health and substance use, then we have to talk about the bystanders. And specifically, Gia fills that bystander role more so than I think anybody else in the show. I mean, Lexi for sure, but not in the same way. Not in the same way as Gia. It's different, but similar. Thank you guys so much for your comments about the editing. That's really sweet. It was not an easy season for either of us, but we're so happy to have provided it for you. Okay. Whoa, look at these questions. Okay. Can you explain the theme of being a bad person throughout the show? Yes, that sounds really great. Let's do that. That was obviously the theme here. It ended with Rue saying, just the thought of being a good person is what makes me want to try to be a good person. And I've talked about that along the way as well. And I told you guys I'm writing that book too called Your Unconscious is Showing. So helpful information and maybe scary information. 1 out of every 20 decisions that we make are actual conscious decisions. 19 out of the 20 decisions that we make at a time, we don't actually make. Our unconscious makes those choices. Our brain already decides what it is that we're going to do, and then we gain consciousness almost like a couple seconds after we're doing it. So what which sounds confusing, that's why I'm writing a book about it. When we make the choices that we make, like for example, when people say addiction is a choice, okay, you trying to place morality and value onto that. Addiction is a choice. Addiction is a choice only to a certain degree. So, but what are your options? If you're experiencing severe pain and suffering, your options may seem to you to be pain and suffering or relief. And then in the beginning, when you first start using substances, you're not causing people harm. You're not even causing your own body harm. You're just experimenting. You're just trying to alleviate some of your pain. So sure, you made a choice between pain and suffering and alleviation. But what we don't realize is that as time goes by and we continue using those substances, we lose it doesn't become a choice between pain and suffering and relief. It becomes a choice of relief or withdrawal symptoms eventually over time. So then it's withdrawal symptoms plus pain and suffering. So do we have a choice? Sure. But what are our choices, right? And not only that, I think we have to keep in mind that we only know what we know, and we often don't know what we don't know. So when we're making choices, we usually make them based off of what's going to keep us safe, what makes the most sense to us, and what are we even capable of doing in any given moment with the amount of pain and suffering that we're experiencing. So sometimes good people do bad things. Sometimes good people do bad things because they feel like they don't have any other choice. Sometimes good people do bad things because they didn't know it was a bad thing to begin with. Do I think that there are people who have not experienced any good in the world, and then it may be really difficult for them to make good choices and be good people? Sure. Do I think that that opportunity is taken away from people forever? No. But I think it gets really tricky. We Our brain is very selfish. Our brain literally just wants us to be in the least amount of pain possible. And we think so much about ourselves, even when we don't think that we do, that sometimes people can get hurt in the process of our choices. So, what makes a good person? Somebody who does bad things and then realizes that it was bad and decides to act differently. I've never met anybody on this planet that hasn't done something that they regret, that hasn't done something that they feel bad for, that hasn't done something that they would literally never do again. But to some people, that one thing that that person did may make them a bad person for the rest of their life. But that doesn't mean that they are, you know? Like, for example, even me as a therapist, when other therapists hear that I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, they think, oh my God, she's like, we can't be around her. She shouldn't see clients. That's a judgment, an immediate judgment. Instead, people that actually interact with me, that actually understand and are willing to see past just this one part of who I am, realize that there's a lot more to me than just that thing. So, for example, will Maddie think that Cassie's a bad person forever? Maybe. Does that make Cassie a bad person? No. And that's important for you guys to all realize. If somebody thinks something about you, it doesn't make it true. It might make it true for them and it might make it true in your relationship with them, but we are not just one thing that we've done. And we are not just one part of who we are. And that's really important for us all to realize. It's subjective whether or not somebody is good or bad. Hopefully that was helpful. It's very complicated. That's why I'm trying to write a book about it. Whenever I try to talk about like anything related to the brain or choice or the unconscious and conscious choices, I think I confuse some people. So hopefully you like that. So Cal is not a bad person. Cal is not a bad person. I don't think Cal's a bad person. I think he's done bad things. I think he's done bad things. And those bad things can have consequences, and he should experience the consequences of them. But deep down, I think that he would make different choices if he experienced a different life. And I think that that's really important. I think there's a difference between intentionally hurting somebody and hurting somebody on accident or unintentionally. And and I think that our pain and suffering makes a lot of choices for us that we wouldn't consciously make if we had the opportunity to do so without it being so painful. But yeah, he does bad things. A lot of people do. But they just wouldn't. And I really want you all to know that. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, I do. It's very, very difficult to have my borderline personality disorder. But I've had it for a really long time and I deal with it. And you know what? It's actually what gives me so much compassion and understanding for other people, for all of the characters in this show. I've done like almost everything that all of these characters have done in this show. And I think that you all appreciate me because I'm empathetic and I'm compassionate and I'm understanding and I can see the full spectrum of what somebody may be experiencing. And Euphoria did a really good job at allowing me to show that. So thanks. Your voice is so calm. Thank you. Is Nate a psychopath? No, we need to see more. What did Cassie mean by saying Lexi was only a bystander? I think that she just meant that she stood on the sidelines and just sort of watched as everybody actually lived their life. I think Cassie said something like that in the play, like, you've never really lived. Like, of course, you don't have any problems because you've never really lived. And so I think that that's what that means, is just like, maybe they actually chose the word bystander too because it was our life. That was like the name of like the play. And so maybe those words were chosen very particularly, that like she wasn't actually showing her life. She was showing like all of their lives and and herself as a bystander with the experiences of it. Hi, your first live chat. Well, thank you. This is my first live. Hopefully it's going okay. Thank you so much for how many people are here. I really appreciate it. Um, let's see. I was going to answer one. Oh, do you think certain psychoactive substances are beneficial, like MDMA, psychedelics, and marijuana? Yes, I do. I do think that they're very beneficial. And here's the reason for that. Actually, here's a really fucked up fact that I just figured out when I was reading through studies last week. Out of all of the mental health disorders that are in the DSM 5, only, or out of 100% of the disorders in the DSM 5, 88 point something, 88% of those disorders have no FDA approved medications. None, 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 none. Okay. None. And out of those, 10 of the actual approved FDA psychotropic medications for mental health disorders are for substance use disorder, like craving medications or Suboxone for people who are addicted to opiates. 88% of mental health disorders in the DSM do not have approved medications for them. So they're all used off label. Almost all of the medications that are prescribed to you for your mental health issues, for the most part, are used off label. So if that is the case, then why can't these other psychoactive substances be helpful? And I'm actually going to be posting this study soon because I was pretty shocked. It came out because they're coming out with a new version of the DSM. And so I was like starting to look into what those changes would be. And I found that absolutely fascinating. So it makes sense that we're diving into other things that can activate our brains, because if the FDA literally can't even get the majority of these medications to be approved for our mental health issues, then what the hell is supposed to help us? And I also think it's really important that I talk about the decriminalization of substances, because before we had computers, before we had laws, before we had all of the things that make drugs illegal in today's society and culture, human beings were still using substances. We've been using substances for as long as we can remember. And when I used to teach substance use classes for master's level students at a graduate school in Santa Barbara, California, I would teach the upcoming therapists about why human beings use substances and why they always have. Going all the way back to the shamanic times, the indigenous cultures that were existed on this planet before colonialism, they engaged in practices of using certain types of medication to connect with God, to connect with a higher power. We used any plants that we could find to alleviate pain. That's where cocaine came from, like to alleviate pain as an analgesic. And so we've been using them for so long, whether it was for pleasure, for a party, for the release of pain, um, or to have spiritual experiences. We've been using substances for so long. And so I think that they should be decriminalized, because we live in a world that's really messed up. It's very difficult to live in. We're not supposed to be exposed to this much information at one time. Our brains are literally dying. Our bodies are dying. I mean, that sounds a little dramatic, but I can be like that sometimes because I'm pretty existential, but it's the truth. So we're suffering more than we've ever suffered before. And the solution, in my opinion, isn't to give somebody an off label medication that isn't even supposed to be used for the mental health disorder that they have, and to try to, one, fix society, two, fix how our children are raised, three, decriminalize medications because you just want us to suffer. Like, You just want us to suffer instead and then just stick us in jail when we can't deal with our pain. And at the same time, I understand that the more that we are out of our minds, the more likely we are to make choices that we wouldn't make, that people may consider to us to be a bad person once we do those things. Of course, when we're out of our minds, there's more potential for impulsivity, more potential for violence. And that's not to say that all people that use substances, all people that are out of their mind are going to be impulsive or violent. Anybody can be impulsive or violent that's out of their mind, and people can get out of their mind if somebody says something wrong to them at work. They don't have to be like under the influence of a substance to do that. So I feel like that's important. That was my rant. I'm an addiction expert, and I wrote my dissertation on compassion and mindfulness interventions that should be utilized with people that have substance use issues, because a lot of the other interventions don't actually get to the core root of the problem. Okay. Next. Let's see. Hi from Brazil. Do I think Rue will stay sober? Because it's a show, I don't know what they're going to want to do. Somebody said something in one of the comments that I thought was really interesting. They said the way that Rue worded, I stayed clean through the rest of the school year, could really imply one of two things. One, she's not sober in the summer, or two, that's where they're going to open up. So I don't know. Can people stay sober? Yeah, actually, my best girlfriend and my best guy friend have over 6 years sober, and they did meth and opiates for several years from when they were really young. And they both have families, and they both aren't using. I know people that have 50 years of sobriety. It is possible, and it happens a lot. Do I think Rue has bipolar or borderline personality disorder? I definitely don't think that she has borderline personality disorder. I think that they said that she had bipolar in the show, but you know what? We should talk about that. When I rewatched it, Rue, when she was younger, had anxiety and then was like counting those tiles on the roof. And then I remember where the therapist is like, oh my God, it's like you have like ADHD, OCD, like generalized anxiety, like all these things. Like that's ridiculous. That should not happen. Okay. When I was 16, I diagnosed myself with borderline or with bipolar, went to a psychiatrist, said, I read in this book that I think I have bipolar. Can you give me medications at 16? He talked to me for 10 minutes, gave me medications, and I like plummeted with mental health. And then a couple years later, that medication got recalled for teenagers because it wasn't healthy for them. So I don't think that there was enough of an analysis done in real life for a child to be diagnosed with all of those disorders and then to be placed on a shit ton of medications. How can we expect Rue, as she's growing up after the death of her dad, not turn to substances when the first thing that she was taught about her own mind was that her mind needed to be controlled with substances? But these ones are okay, but these ones aren't okay. That's really confusing for a teenager. And I think another thing that's really important is they haven't shown enough. Often when people have bipolar and they have really intense substance use issues, it's really hard to differentiate whether or not they actually have bipolar disorder if they're constantly under the influence of substances. Because there are mental health disorders that are substance induced. If you're like drinking alcohol, which is a depressant, and then you want to stay awake, so then you do cocaine, and then the next morning you drink or you do meth. Like if you are manufacturing the neurotransmitters in your brain and the functioning of your body over and over and over again with no breaks, it's going to be impossible to tell if you have a mental health disorder outside of the substances. Substances would need to be removed for a significant amount of time in order to see the baseline functioning of what do your moods look like? What does your impulsivity look like when you're not under the influence of anything? But clearly she did have some issues like anxiety, like with those counting. But honestly, there's a part of me, maybe she was just counting the tiles. Like, I don't know. Maybe we're going to find out in the end that she shouldn't have been placed on anything and she doesn't have any mental health issues other than now, obviously, grief, substance use issues, and obviously anxiety. Okay. Let's see. Oh, just so that you all know, I have to go pick up my son at 4, so we have like 15 more minutes. Um, but I do want to say that I'm thinking about going live more often, and I'm also thinking about doing the character breakdowns live so that you all can just ask me questions in real time for each and every character versus having to do that, just watch it and put it in the comments. So we'll ask in the community tab after what you think would be best. You should start a podcast. Well, 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 that's a good thing to say because I already have one. It's called The Truth Doctor Show, and you can find it anywhere that you find podcasts. Actually, that's not true. It's not on iHeartRadio or all those ones that cost money, I think, but all the free ones, it's on Apple, it's on Google, it's on Anchor, it's on Spotify, called The Truth Doctor Show. And we actually have a new season coming out on 420, which is pretty, I should have just said April 20th, but whatever. Yes, on 420, the season 3 of the podcast starts. Okay, let's see. It's nighttime where I live. Do you think things like gut health have to do with mental health? Yes, they do. And one of my favorite neuroscientists from Stanford, Andrew Huberman, recently, he has a podcast too, Andrew Huberman, recently came out with a podcast of his own that talked about how what we eat makes certain chemicals in our gut that then send messages to our brain. And then those messages from our brain send messages to our gut. And it matters. It really matters. So, yes, absolutely. Like I eat like shit, and that really affects my mental health. So, even from a subjective personal experience, I know that. Professionally, I've seen it in the science and working with individuals. It really matters a lot. Think about it. Think about it. If you can put substances into your stomach or up your nose or in your veins or whatever, put substances into your stomach and have that affect your mood, your impulsivity, why wouldn't putting food into your stomach have the same effect? Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, look up the podcast. Your conversations are so comforting. It's nice to know someone cares. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have a little boy. He's 3 years old. His name is Bodhi. Do I think Cassie has BPD? You're going to have to watch it because I talked about that in the beginning. This is a really good one. How do you deal with forgiveness? Because one of the themes of season 2 was running from your emotional pain and then causing other people pain while doing so. So even if you know that, even if you know the reason, okay, like the reason why somebody did something or the reason why somebody is the way that they are, you shouldn't just forgive them and let it go and not have boundaries and just be like, "Oh, well, I guess I should just keep getting hurt because this person's hurt, so it makes sense. Like, I'll just take their pain and then I'll be in pain and then I'll give my pain to somebody else and we'll all just pass our pain off to each other." No, we really do need to differentiate forgiveness and boundaries. I had an entire course that I put out 2 years ago when I first started on social media about forgiveness. A lot of people say that they don't ever, ever, ever want to forgive anybody. And in my opinion, that's dangerous. When I was writing that course for forgiveness, I found so much science that backed up how unforgiveness affects us as human beings. They did studies on cancer patients and found that cancer patients that were holding resentment and that like felt like they had the psychological inability to forgive did worse. Their outcomes of chemotherapy were worse. Unforgiveness can cause you to have chronic health issues. It can cause you to have mental health issues. Typically, when we're holding on to forgiveness, or when we're holding on and we don't want to forgive, the most important piece of forgiveness has nothing to do with who you're forgiving, which I know everybody hears that all the time. Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, but it's true. The most important piece of forgiveness has nothing to do with the person that you're forgiving and everything to do with what unforgiveness does to your body and your mind. If you haven't forgiven someone, they could be you could be so angry. You could be holding in that actual anger, that tension, that stress. If you're holding on to unforgiveness and you're holding on to sadness, sadness has major physical effects and mental health effects as well. So what does forgiveness look like if it's not for the other person? It looks like letting go of the emotions and still have peace. Letting go of the emotions and the hurt and working through that and knowing, not forgetting. Don't forget don't forget where your pain came from, but forgive the experience. Let go of the emotions tied to it so that you can be free. One of my favorite quotes is if forgiveness is a hook, you're on first, and then the person who hurt you is on second. The only way to truly be okay is to say, listen, here's my boundary. I'm taking you off, and I'm going to get off this hook too because it fucking hurts. Like, I want to take time. I don't want to live my life mad at you forever. But just because you're not mad internally at them anymore doesn't mean that they didn't still do something that made you want to distance yourself. I think it's really important that we don't hold resentment. And it sometimes it feels good to do that. Like, it feels good to hold on, like, no, like, they deserve somebody to be mad at them, right? Like, totally get it. Like, I am so mad at so many people cognitively, not emotionally. And those are two different levels of our actual unconscious functioning. Cognitively, we can know we are mad that you did this, but emotionally, we don't have to feel it. And forgiveness for me and for the clients that I work with feels like emotional release. I'm not going to let you control my emotions anymore because of the thing that you did. And cognitively, like, you can stay over there. Does that make sense? It's really, really, really important simply because a lack of forgiveness is holding on to pain, and you don't need to do that. Hopefully that helped. Okay, where am I at? Where am I at? Okay, got a little bit more time. um, what do you think about the analyzing of dreams? Nate's dream can be analyzed because it's fiction, but real dreams are much more erratic. I feel like some of the dream interpretation stuff is total bullshit. And to be totally honest, I haven't seen much science behind it. I don't know. I feel like I've actually done podcast interviews with people who all they do is dream analysis and they do hypnosis. And so, like, okay, when we're sleeping, our brain is functioning in a different way. It has different waves going within it and different releases. Our brain is processing what's going on in our memory stores, our memory bins, our systems are becoming strengthened, or our brain's realizing that we're not using certain systems. So, like, there's a lot of shit going on when we're dreaming. However, I just don't fully know if the metaphorical interpretations can be fully relied on. In my opinion, when somebody's going in for dream interpretation, it just is more metaphorical, kind of like with horoscopes or astrology. Like, I I'm on board for, like, the reasons why all of that is a thing, but I also think it's just introspection. Can you align with the symbols? Does this resonate with you in the moment? And it gives you an opportunity to decide who you are, who you're not, what you align with, what you don't. And I think creativity and art and symbolism and all of those things really matter. And so I mean, yes, of course we can interpret the Nate's dream because it is a TV show. Um, I don't know. I don't know enough about it. It seems not up my alley, I think. But I don't want to, like, disprove it because, hey, things aren't evidence based until there's evidence for them, right? And I just haven't looked at the research enough. How do you feel that being a therapist has helped you with being a mom? Well, thank you for asking that. And thank you for asking it so many times that I could see it. Um, I think that it's made it easier, but I don't think that it's made it easier because I understand what he needs. I understand what every human needs on a biological and emotional level. But I think what's helped more is honestly recovering from my borderline personality disorder, because I had to learn distress tolerance, and I had to learn interpersonal communication skills, and I had to learn emotional regulation, and what parts of the brain did that, and how to pause before I react, and how to see things clearly and see things truthfully. And so now whenever my toddler's like fucking freaking out, like toddlers do, um, I know to regulate my own body before reacting to his. And I think that that's really important, because parents in general can learn those skills. They can learn interpersonal communication, distress tolerance, emotional regulation, and we need to know those things as parents. We need to know, and we actually see that in Euphoria as well. We see parents that have like no fucking clue that what they're saying and what they're doing is just severely damaging their kids. Yes, DBT. And it's so sad. But the thing is parents, even the best intentioned parents, are going to say things. They're going to do things, because we're human beings too. We're all human beings. We all have a nervous system. We all have conditioning of certain things that make us get really angry or make us get really compassionate. And the goal as a parent is to turn more towards the compassion and the acceptance and the regulation than it is to act on impulse and to say, like, if my toddler's acting a fool, I can act a fool too, because that's just obnoxious. But it's so hard. So I don't think it's necessarily being a therapist. I think it's learning about myself and how the human mind and body reacts in general, and then deciding to do differently. Okay, where am I at? Okay, you guys, I just have a couple more minutes. Yes, I will leave this on the channel. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Actually, if I can just take the last couple minutes to ask you all how you felt like this live went. I've never been live like this on YouTube. I would love to come on here more. If you liked this video, if it was helpful, please remember to like it. And let me know, yeah, how this went. Any tips? Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you guys liked it. Thank you. Okay, I'll answer this last question. What's your view on struggling in school and trying to figure out life in your 20s? I say that it won't hold you back. It took me 6 years to get my associate's degree because I was using drugs and alcohol so much instead. So, and now I have 4 degrees. So, and all of those, all the rest came at a normal time. Let yourself have time. There is like no timeline for when you're supposed to get things done. There really isn't. There really, really, really isn't. So please just allow yourself space. To everyone that's listening, allow yourself space to have your emotions, feel them, step outside of the regulations of society that you live in today, gender roles that you live in today, family dynamics, family like requirements, partner requirements, and allow yourself to sit and just like be, you know? You're not a failure because you take longer to get a degree. You're not a failure because you're single. You're not a failure because you're fat. You're not a failure because you're this or that or anything, because you're shy or because you're outgoing or because there is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And you are an individual on the planet, and maybe you've done bad things in your life, but if you think that they're bad and you want to do better, then you're not bad. If you experience emotional pain, let it process. If somebody hurts you, process it, feel it, set those boundaries, and then let go of the emotional pain so that you can be happier. And as always, I am so glad that you all exist. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. And stay tuned, because either this upcoming week or the week after, we will start with the Euphoria character breakdowns. And I'm really excited to do those. I've been having a lot of difficulty recently in my own personal life You can check out my Instagram if you want to learn more. I've been putting down my stories of what I've been personally experiencing in my captions on Instagram. Um, and I'll just close it out one more time. As always, I am glad that you exist. Have a great day. Have a great night. See you next time.